Welcome to the Outer Fringe.
Hey, this is Brian, and we got Jill Valentine into the podcast today. Jill, I got to meet when I was having a conversation with our previous guest, Sarah Cunningham. And Jill, it was wily. She just kind of started listening to our conversation from afar as Sarah and I were having a coffee, and then had to come by, and she was ready for another run. Likes to keep fit over here, but she's like, I just need to say, I really enjoyed what you guys were talking about. And I was like, well, if you like the conversation, let's pull you in. So we've gotten a chance to chat since then. And actually, so what I'd really like first, Jill, is just to kind of introduce yourself, about yourself for a couple of minutes, so we kind of get an idea of who you are. Just, where'd you grow up? And like I said, where did life move you around to, and how'd you end up here in Boise?
Tell us your whole life story, Jill.
Oh goodness, in 3 minutes.
No,
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
You've been so many places.
Yeah. Well, it's very sweet to have met you in that coffee shop, and now to be here. I think it's amazing how things can happen that way. I grew up in a small town in Midwestern Illinois, and traveled around the world a bit with my family on spring break. So I always had a knack for traveling. I would collect all the brochures at the truck stops, as a youngster, and then get home and look at them and map out places. My travels in college then took me to Italy, and Italy is a big part of the joyous piece of my life. I went to school there in college, and then post-college, thought, how can I stay? Because I like it so much. So I worked as a tour guide in Tuscany, in Florence. So I lived in Florence then, but originally lived in Bologna. And then from there, came back to the U.S. for a spell, actually right after 9/11. That was a moment in my life when I was in Italy, and those events happened, and probably like many people reevaluated some things and felt the loss and missing of my family. So got back to here to the U.S. and continued to work as a travel guide. Traveled and guided, ended up guiding foreigners here in the U.S. all around, all over the States, Canada, and Mexico. That was the best job of my life, right? Driving around in a 15-passenger van with 13 foreigners, visiting the national parks all over the U.S. and the major cities. And then I thought, how do I get back to Italy again? I need to get back to a place that's joyous and really resonates with my mind, my body, my spirit, my soul. So I started a company that led trips in the island of Sardinia, and we did hiking and sailing and cultural trips, and that was amazing, and met so many wonderful people around the world doing that. Want me to keep going about my life? Are we at 3 minutes?
No, I didn't mean to make you feel like you only had 3 minutes, but
yeah,
I just felt like, and how did you get here too?
Yeah, and to Boise. So, on that note, how I got here, of all the places, I really love being here. Yeah. I've been here kind of home-based, because as a traveler or as a guide, you sometimes live in many different places for a certain amount of times, but you always have a home base. And Boise's been my home base for over 10 years.
Yep.
Though I came here initially in 2001, after that's the following spring of 2002. So I have been here and familiar with it because my family moved here. My sister, I had a sister here who's still here, and we love it.
Okay, well, no, that's great little intro. We've gotten to sit down and talk about some stuff previously, at that coffee shop. So I just wanted to start with a wider net, and let's just talk about some larger cultural stuff, right? And so I understand saying Boise is a home base, because for a while Boston was my home base, and then I came here to Boise while I was still doing a lot of traveling around the country, and so needing a place to just kind of keep your stuff, right? Like one of my cousins, he owns like a backpack. That's it. He can go wherever, and we're kind of jealous of him. But like the rest of us are kind of attached to this stuff. And so having stuff as a traveler is one thing, but also for me as a traveler, seeing how people interact, you know, like I know that we get a bad rap when Americans go to other countries, like we're nasty to other people. And then when people come here from other countries, I see that they're often very nice. So I don't really get the same viewpoint of people from other countries coming into the US, but just being able to go to other countries, experience their lives, and then have them come here, we get a lot of like, not cultural meltdown, but like, what would you say are some real connection points in culture? We all get together on like a good meal, right?
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Like what brings us to, you know, we're from all these different places around, but like what brings us together, whether they're coming here or you're going there?
Yeah. Well, I feel that what can bring us together could be something, a personal interest. You know, it could be biking. People like to bike and they all meet people. That biking is actually what I did in Italy as a guide. So you get into a biking community where you're meeting other people there. Personal interests definitely can bring people together. And then the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, such as sitting down and having a meal or having a coffee. Coffee's cultural, you know, where coffee shops are cultural. I think that a form of connecting all around the world is ultimately even what we want to do, you know, on a day-to-day basis. Just every day when you get up and go to work or you go to the grocery store is essentially connect.
Well, and that's something powerful about traveling is when you're in a place where you don't know anybody, you're craving that connection. So it kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone and you have to reach out and you have to get to know people and build a connection so that you know, essentially have something to hold on to, you know, like otherwise you're just kind of wandering aimlessly. And I think, you know, with travel, there's such a freedom to it too. So people are just more like when people don't feel like they're trapped in a situation and they have that sense of freedom, it kind of creates more connection with other people because they're not constantly just trying to grind away at their schedule and just wanting to retreat at the end of the day and hide away. I feel like that for me, like when I'm in my daily routine, it's like the connection usually comes through work and then I have my friendships, but then beyond that, I just like don't have the energy to put into it.
Right. But that's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Why aren't we always considered traveling, you know, like in a small way, like you and I were talking about, you know, nicotine. Why aren't we always considered like trying to get off something, right? And be like, oh, well, we're going through withdrawal for nicotine. You're going through withdrawal for your boyfriend, you know, whatever. We're always going through withdrawal, you know, so in any particular day that I've been traveling, I either have been the person who is running late or I've seen the person who's running late, you know, more often seen, right? But we forgive that. We see that person who needs help and they're like, okay, let's get out of their way in the airport because they're trying to run to make their connection, right? But on the every single day kind of now we consider it the grind.
Yeah.
Oh, that person's running late or like what's wrong with them? That person's running late, like, you know, well, I have to get there too, the traffic. We don't have that same openness to understand and be compassionate or empathetic to other people when we consider it our daily grind. Though the actions are very similar. We completely have different emotions on how we perceive and then work with or against somebody else's needs. We're still kind of traveling today, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. To find joy and something new or something interesting in our day-to-day, you know, lives it can take effort, but then it can just, if you have that knowing that there's always something new I could see, or go drive a different way, take a different road. It's about taking our lenses off, you know, and I feel also looking at things, observing awareness in perhaps a neutral state, you know, not a state always of this is right or this is wrong or that's weird or, you know, if we can have that here in our own hometown, then that makes a really conscious traveler abroad, you know. Less judgments, more open mind. Again, taking our lens off, seeing each other as humans, no matter where we are.
Yeah, humanity.
Yeah.
Humanity.
The true humanity. I wonder why it is that, you know, just having your situation, you know, like if you're in a situation where you're just in such a grind every day, how it just takes so much energy out of you. Like how do you find a balance? How do you still find that journey each day into exploring the unknown without allowing it to drain you even more? Because that's where I struggle. Like even when I get home in the evening, if I have plans or I want to do something, it's so hard for me to get motivated to get back out. Like once I get home, I'm like, I just want to hide away for the rest of the night. But then I'm losing so many experiences. But sometimes I think I just lack the energy. So how do you, I don't know, like what do you guys think
Well,
on
when
that?
I come
Like,
back from a trip,
Yeah.
I'm still in that trip state, right? Where I'm thinking about what I just did, what I just saw, who I met, all the cool things I did, right? And I can go about the normal day, but I've got a different mindset, right? And even right before a trip, I've got all this excitement and I've got extra energy because it's like, well, I still need to pack because I'm a dude.
I
And
often
like,
tell myself,
right-
pretend that you're going to pack somewhere and go on a trip when you need to get a lot done.
Yeah.
Because when you're right before you're packing and going on a trip, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
everything
you
just
have
Right.
there's
completion,
the excitement,
yeah,
the drive.
So this idea of our psychological state is what I'm trying to talk about. Like our psychological state is more open, more understanding, more hopeful, more excited, all these things before and after the trip, right? How do we extend that? How do we
Yeah.
extend that?
That's the big question.
So mindset,
Right.
Yeah.
okay, your mindset, and to your question around around the energy, you know, you say you do your thing, the grind, quote unquote, every day, and you get home and you don't have energy to do the fun things. So for me, I integrate the fun things all the time with the grind. So at the end of the day, there is a balance. Like it's for me finding joy, and not only finding it, but knowing what it is. Instead of saying, I'm going to wake up today and see something new, you know, this Boise, it's where I've been for my whole life. But today, you know, instead
Yeah.
of like, today I'm going to see something new, like be on your way. But know, for example, one of my joys is coffee. So a little espresso, something, you know, it's a joy. So I do that every day. Or, you know, some of my joys are listening to Italian music. It puts me in that state of places that I enjoy as well. So then that's part of me, and that's part of my mindset and part of my vibration when I go out into then what we're calling the grind, which maybe we
Right.
can even use a different word for that.
I think for me, it's just like I'm constantly trying to, because I have a job I love. I have hobbies that I enjoy. But sometimes I feel like it's so much energy for me to continue to like connect with people. Like I feel it's a vulnerability. I don't know if it's because I'm an empath, but sometimes beyond what I do, it's more like I lack energy. And then I end up sitting at home and then I'm like feel extra lonely. And it's because I'm not reaching out. It's because I'm kind of sitting in my little box. And I don't know where that comes from, but yeah, I meditate. I do all the, you know, I try to stay positive, but there's something about the energizing effect of an adventure. And that's where I'd love to incorporate that into my everyday, where I feel that way just with what I'm doing on a daily basis versus having to go travel somewhere new constantly to feel that kind of euphoria, feel that sense of freedom. And I guess that's not super realistic, but
Well, you know, like we were talking a lot about kids, and like kids still have this childlike nature that a lot of things can be adventure that we know as adults, we've seen that every day. We've
Yes.
seen that time and time again.
yes.
Or they see it and they look at it a new way each time. You know, around the corner there might be a monster, but who knows? It's the same corner, but they're being even playful with that. And so, you know, I don't know if it's something we can teach to children or something that maybe I had been taught and have been lost, but like there's got to be different ways to look at this reality around me and not put it into this drudge category, you know, to maybe put it into like not a perfection, but like, how's a new game that I can play with it today, you know? Maybe I think that's why we like those people on shows like The Office who are just showing up into the office every day just to play a different game on other people, because they're still making it exciting.
Yeah.
You know, like no matter what, it's the same kind of day in, day out, but they're playing some different game, right? And so we find that entertaining.
Yeah, well, it's the inner child and making games out of things. Observing children. I mean, you mentioned like children, everything is interesting. Maybe there's a monster around the corner today, but like observing them and being like them too is okay as adults. We know that we have responsibilities. We know, you know, how to be an adult, and somewhere we've forgotten how to be a child, and somewhere perhaps we learned that it's not okay to be a child as adults. So childlike, not childish, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I'm so drawn to people with childlike spirit. Like, you know, I have people in my life that are always like that, just kind of a playfulness and like a deep innocence, and I'm like just drawn to that. Like, I want to be around that person all day.
yeah, then do.
Yeah.
That can help. You know?
Yeah, I crave
and bring
that.
it out in you too, because
Yeah.
we all have it.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like sometimes I kind of more in that inner child, you know, like, I don't know. Do you think it has something to do with just, I mean, right now we're in such a dire state as far as pretty much everything, like political, like our environment, and, you know, just the inflation of cost of living, and everything is just, everything is kind of almost projected like we're in a place like where we just are fighting against something that is like, we just are never gonna win this fight. And sometimes I feel like when I stay in that spot for too long, like this is why I don't watch the news. This is why I really tried, like, I don't go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, which
You don't?
I love to, but then I will notice 6 hours later, I'm still I mean, and what is it doing for me? Nothing.
Can I mention?
Yes,
so
please.
That's great self-awareness. So what's it doing for me? What is it doing? What does it do to your body? Does it tense? Let me guess. Tense jaw, tight shoulders, maybe even a bellyache.
Yep.
I'm also describing myself in
This describes
certain
my
things.
physical body to a T.
Okay, so stop the things that's creating
Yeah.
that.
So do more yoga.
Step one.
Well, step one is recognizing it, and you already recognize
But
it.
why am I drawn to it? Why am I so addicted to, like, I don't know, creating this inner conflict with myself? Like,
Why?
I don't know.
See, I find joy in ways of looking at that and trying to understand it, so that, you know, let's imagine I had the power to start protests and change the world. How would I do that? You know, what would I actually rally against? Where would I find specific points of interest? And so it's a big puzzle for me. It's a big thought game of like, okay, well, who's really running this show? Well, who's really running that show? Okay, like, where could we actually make the most benefit in this world if we, you know, clean energy. I love it. Absolutely love it, because it's taking power away from people who have been constantly in power for the last, I'm just going to say 100 years, probably at least 90.
Yeah, and
So
destroying our planet.
you know, and then there's political movements around that. We were kind of just talking about Greta earlier, and I said,
Yeah.
let's pull that into the pod if you guys want to talk about Greta specifically. I think that really is just an outrage from the rest of the world, because
Right.
the rest of the world, at least that I've seen, is far more educated than Americans. They literally say, you stupid Americans, and after a couple of trips being around, like, oh, we really are. We're really the
Right.
ones that aren't informed. So can I just inform people? Can I just get people involved? Can we just, like, let's make it a fun game of, like, what's the way that you would design the future? How
Right.
would you change it, right? Let's think about that and change people's
Yeah.
minds slowly through that, making that a game instead of who would we hunt down and kill, which is also a fun game
And
to
that's
play.
where I get concerned, though, is like, how do we do that in a way where we're not doing it with fear and anger?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like those two emotions are really destructive. They're destructive for our collective consciousness. They're not effective. They've never been effective at causing or creating real change.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we create change, but do it in a way where it's coming from a place of love?
I mean, I think that's the childlike sense of wonder that we're getting at, and
Yeah.
really where we got at is, like when we're born, we know the whole story. We know it. Like we knew it. We didn't have fear. We knew we were going to be taken care of. And then we lost that story somewhere along the way. And we get brought into this whole world of the drudge and the politics.
It's
and
society.
The power. Yeah.
I believe that, yes, we come in with pure love and light and knowledge and awareness, but we come into a 3D world that has ways of functioning, it has social norms, it has cultures, it has then other things like animals, and like there's the whole big picture that then starts to create perhaps how we view things. I believe, though, ultimately, we get to choose how we view things.
Mm-hmm.
And as children, okay, that's where it gets taken away, is the parents and the clergies and the teachers and the neighbors that tell children the way things are through their lens.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's how we evolve. I mean, that's how information is passed. That's how we communicate, all of that. So perhaps the more aware we are of our thoughts and our views of things and what we speak about to our children, to pay attention to what that is.
Yeah.
And is it positive? Is it with love? Or is it with fear? Is it the grind? Is it that everything is pretty much going down the drain? Or is it, wow, what a beautiful world. Look
Yeah.
at the fish over there. That one, sorry, I just thought of because I have a 1.5-year-old baby, and we were just in a pool with a little bit of water, and in a split second she fell over and was underwater looking up and not breathing, or I mean trying to breathe, right? And I grab her and I'm like, were there any little fishy down there? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe instead of fear,
Instead of being like, oh my God, are you okay? Yeah. And that's our
or
natural
don't do
reaction.
that. Like don't, all of that. Yeah. So
Diffusing the trauma, right? Like, did
Right.
you catch the rabbit when they fall?
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's huge. That's so huge.
So
God,
and
that's
as
so
adults, we
yeah.
have to pay attention to how we're thinking and how we're speaking about things, and that's where I think we get to choose.
Yeah.
And we get to choose what we want to pay attention to. By listening to the news, if your body is all tensed up and
Yeah.
you continue to listen to it, then, like, I don't know, what do I want to say, shame on you? Or, like, why are
Yeah.
you doing that? Like,
Right.
why? Does it feel good?
Because I need to
And-
stay informed on the fake stuff that is put out there. That's the thing is, like, I don't believe any of it, so why am I watching it? All it's doing is creating a stressed, feeling inside of me. And I don't believe any of it.
Yeah.
I think it's all through a filter. I think it's all just, I don't really believe anything that's on the news.
When Second Bush was in office and the whole weapons of mass destruction, it was a time period when I had moved back here after living in Italy. And by all means, other countries have very corrupt governments as well, and big issues and problems as we do.
Right.
But at that time, I felt maybe how, in a way, how you do, like, I want to be informed. So at that time, I was reading several newspapers a day, universal, like one's mostly local and then one Italian. So I had one source that was outside of here. I was fighting with everybody. I was kicking my car door shut after a disagreement with my boyfriend at the time. I tipped over someone's drink in the on the table and having a discussion about politics and the way things are. And I got to a point where I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel good to me. I'm certainly not making any friends here. I'm
Right.
making enemies, and this is against what I want to feel and believe in anyway. It's just perpetuating more of that
Right.
stuff.
And look at like social media. It's even more aggressive on social media because people don't have any face to face. So it's like people just attacking each other left and right for, just they don't even know the person and they're like, you're a horrible person.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
And if I can be an example of what you're talking about, of still wanting to be informed, but not wanting to go through the pain to be informed, maybe.
Right.
That moment, so that was what, early 2000, I haven't bought a newspaper or watched the news on my own, like on my own accord. And I get the news that I need to hear. It was a leap of faith. Like, how am I not going to find out what's going on in the world?
Yeah.
But I did, even though I wasn't reading a newspaper and listening to the news every day.
Right.
It's out there enough to know what's going on. And then a particular subject that draws your heart in, okay, there's plenty of outlets to investigate it more or talk to people who will know about it, maybe who do read the paper. Okay, I want to get, something like that. So to be more focused about what it is that can drive us to, that we care about, rather than all of it all at once. The economy, the racism, the guns, all of it at once. You get to a point of perhaps desperation, and then like, what can I do about it? It's too much.
One thing that I've been doing, because I don't watch the news. I don't really I don't buy into any of the stuff they're saying on the news anyways. But like one thing that I've been trying to do more of is just get into more of that mindset of like the healing community, just for me, I'm drawn to that. So I'm taking that energy and kind of putting it more into that. Like, how can I actually grow as a person so that maybe I can help others around me and actually have an effective impact on people in my life. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to do it if I'm going out and protesting. I'm not going to be able to do it if I'm, starting debates on Facebook. I'm not going to do it if I'm doing, there's so many different avenues that like, it's just, there's definitely a desire sometimes to just get angry and want to kick and scream. But I'm like, if I could channel all of that into growing and bettering myself as a person and hopefully being better to others, that's kind of what I would rather be spending my time on and my energy.
It takes more time to do that, though.
Oh, I know. And it's also more.
So let's
more
talk about
vulnerability.
time.
Yeah. Time.
Let's talk about time then.
Age. Time.
If it's worth it, then it could take our whole life. It does, actually.
And it never stops.
And it never stops.
Never stopping.
It never stops until our last breath. But I really like this discussion about time.
Yeah.
And it can bring in culture to it. That's a real thing. So you notice, as you start to travel, you loosen up about time, perhaps. And when you're in certain countries who are a polychronic society, which is a way of viewing time, USA is monochronic. So there is actually a term and the way of being of those people in that society that's polychronic and monochronic. So polychronic is views time as more fluid. It's more, I can't, not today, but tomorrow. Or it's, I have lots of projects and I'm going to kind of work on them all at once. And one will finish and then another one. And it is around relationships. So in the polychronic society, a relationship is valued more than I guess, time. So a relationship can grow over a week or years or centuries and
not start and end.
end. Monochronic, which is US, Germany, Switzerland, I would say, but US, for sake of speaking, kind of talking about ourselves, monochronic is very result-oriented. It's punctual. Time is linear.
Yeah.
Something starts and then it ends. And it shows up in our relationships, like, okay, so a business meeting or a meeting with a friend even. Punctuality is valued here. If you say 5 o'clock, then even here we might be there at 5 to 5. Even early is on time here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in business, it is task-oriented and result-oriented. So, like you said, a relationship. Well, here at our job, we have a project, and it needs to be done by Friday. So, there's deadlines, and the goal, the common goal, is the result. Not so much, perhaps, building the relationship along the way, which does happen anyway, good rapport and whatnot. But the focus and the drive behind it is the result.
So I was looking into the future and the expected outcome. It's interesting.
Yeah.
When I've been on a few Native American reservations, just a couple times, but been allowed to kind of just be in with friends, who knew different people in the tribe. They always talked about res time,
Rest time.
Yeah. It's like, when's dinner?
When the sun goes down, or
Yeah.
When I'm hungry.
Isn't it beautiful though? They all know, though. They do when dinner will be. Like,
it'll happen.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
Yeah. But that is the way of large groups of people. Who knows if, even say our Thanksgivings when we have like a ton of people all get together. Like if something isn't ready, like you've got 20 people working. No, not 20 people. You got 8 people working together. And like if one thing is late, then okay, it's going to be late. But you're not worried about getting fed. It's just that when you have large groups of people doing larger things, you can't really pinpoint time so accurately. Okay, why get worried about it? Yeah. Which gets back to Greta. And what Greta's really trying to say is we're out of time. The biggest thing that she was trying to say, which, let's forget the person for a quick second, is that there is a threshold which scientists have given.
Yeah.
And that we will meet the threshold in 8.5 years. Mm-hmm. In 8.5 years, we will cross over that threshold if we make carbon one more day after at our current rate, and there's this tipping point. And getting a little bit into it, what I read about also is there's a lot of like CO2 in the oceans, and the oceans have been sequestering CO2 for a very long time. So not only do we have less forests right now because of the Amazon rainforest being burnt, less plants pulling in CO2 and creating wood or plant matter, but we've got a large store of CO2 in the oceans that at some point, with a relative temperature rise, more CO2 will be released, at which point the temperature will rise, at which more CO2 will be released, at which point the temperature will rise, and we fall off this pattern, right? We just get ever-increasing temperatures, ever-increasing CO2. And I know the parts per million at which it starts to be hard to breathe, and we are not there yet, but that's going to be hit later on. But the temperature is the first thing that's going to go. It's just going to be climate change. So the biggest thing that she was talking about is that while we have had maybe climate change in the back of our minds as like people who are aware of science, right? Or climate change in the back of our minds as people who are actually going out and trying to find new technologies, or people that are just trying to live their daily life and, they use a car because they have to use a car. And that's what you do in America or in other parts of the country. What she was really trying to come and say is, look, we do not have the time for this, right? In 8.5 years. So what is that? We're almost done with 2019. So 2028. Sounds like a big number, not really that far off because it was 1998, like yesterday for me. So without a time value for us all to agree on, then we don't have the same urgency, right? And like, there's some deadlines that we have when we agree to buy a house, when we agree to buy a car, when we agree to do something at work that's a project. Like, there are deadlines, and we have a deadline for humanity, is what she's saying. If we want humanity to continue to exist as it is, here's the timeline deadline that we have to agree on, which is supported by science, but not something that people wanted to hear. And she was trying to be, yes, a forceful voice, because a lot of, as in thousands of soft-spoken scientists have gone unheard.
Yeah, you know, and I've heard that there's like, you know, all these billionaires have all like places built on Mars, and they're all just going to leave the planet. And you hear all this crap, and like, there's all these underground bunkers, and it's just I don't know. It's still just really, it makes me feel powerless when I hear stuff like this, and just sad. Mm-hmm. It's sad.
200 and more animals go extinct every day.
Yeah.
It's sad.
We got more plastics in the ocean than we have stars in the sky. Like, we're screwed. I mean, at the rate we're going, but what do you do?
Well, I think that's an important question, and one that can then create inspired action, right? Mm-hmm. Rather than being angry and feeling crappy and frustrated, then, you know, I feel that inspired action allows that to go away, which is essentially what is making us not feel good,
right,
in our bodies and our minds. So most recently, or just a couple days ago, I read an article about plastics, and the same, even them in the article mentioning that, but it can feel so overwhelming and frustrating. So what can we do? Pay attention to the plastics that you're using. I mean, it's not bunk Gandhi's saying of be the change that you want, be the change yourself that you want to see. So we can't go out, and I'm not going to change all at once the city of Boise or USA, but what can I do in my own home? What can I do there? What about what I buy at the grocery stores? That's what I've been really noticing. I mean, some of the products that I want to eat on a daily basis don't come in a way that is not in plastic. So then it can be extreme. Okay, then guess what? I choose not to eat mozzarella cheese.
Right.
Or I choose to make it myself.
Ooh.
Like, reel it in. How important is it? How important is it that there is less plastics in the oceans than stars? How important is it to you?
Right. But then how do you get rid of the ones that are already there that are...
Don't worry about that yet now, because you can't. I mean, you can worry about it, but you can go and clean up the beach, which, by the way, that exists. I was just in Panama last week.
Cleaning out the oceans, and
I was with them. Mm-hmm. With one guy. There was a whole organization of that town for Saturday from 8 o'clock till 7 o'clock at night. And anybody who wanted to come and join, they supplied all the containers to collect the trash. They were providing boat rides to the island in front of this beach where there's lots of litter. And it was disheartening to me. The first few days I was there, I was like, black. And as a traveler, trying to take off my own lens of being like, black, I don't like it here. I don't even want to stay here. Mm-hmm. Okay, hold on a second. I am here. And what can I do?
Yeah.
Take the lenses off, see the beauty that was there, juxtaposed with the trash, which actually I did go on this hike with this couple, and they did a chakra meditation on this beautiful little beach that we hiked to that was completely surrounded with plastic, with wheels, with trash.
Right.
That gets washed up on a daily basis.
So what are your thoughts on like awakening? Because I've also heard that right now we're kind of at a state where we need to awaken as many people on the planet as possible so that we can so people are capable of creating change, because right now so many people are asleep And so many people are just kind of going through their life with, basically this veil in front of their eyes. What is your thoughts on that? Do you think there's some truth to that as far as humans really needing to get to a higher level of consciousness to really implement change?
That's a great question. Do I feel that that's what we need to do to see the change that we need? Yeah, I do feel that because I feel the change that is needed is probably quite drastic.
Yeah, it feels
and
so
that's
drastic.
the beautiful thing about awakening is it can be drastic and quick when someone's ready to.
Right.
If they're not, then they're not going to. If they don't care, or if they are in actually a life that is survival, if people are in survival mode, then it might be more difficult to look outside of that. Well.
And a lot of the people that are in survival mode in the U.S. are it's not the same as if they're in a third world country.
Well, yeah. And it's all a matter of perspective,
where it's like they're
right?
actually usually happy.
It's a matter of perspective, and so that's where it goes to. We can choose how we want to see things.
Yeah.
Do I want to see things that, in survival mode that, I don't know, what does that look like? To me, that looks like maybe late on rent.
Yeah.
Okay, but maybe survival mode somewhere else is I don't have a home. Okay, and then either way, the late on rent could be like, I do have a home, and the rent will come. The person without a home is, I have a friend that has a home.
Yeah.
So it's always, no matter what our situations are, it's our own selves that get to choose how we want to see them.
Yeah, that's so true.
And I do believe that, or I don't know, my way of functioning is, I don't want to put, rose-colored glasses on to things that are negative or that feel negative. But what is the flip side, of something negative? What's something that is necessary or beneficial, right? It's that there's always two sides. There's always two sides to one coin in everything.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. That's the perspective. But it's hard. It's hard to change.
That's where it takes awareness of essentially then our thoughts. Where are they? And where do my thoughts take me? And then even where those thoughts that take me to those places, how does that feel in my body?
Why is that not taught in schools? To children and families?
I think children already knew it and know it, but there again, at a young age, shh, time to be quiet, or don't do that, or look at me when I'm talking to you.
Yeah. If anything, they're taught the opposite in schools.
We had a lot of, self-exploration and thoughts, looking off in the distance, just kind of mind wandering. Don't do that. But we had to kind of understand where our brains would take us and then get back to the here and now, what was necessary. I don't know if that's meditation. I think it's kind of some more exploration of, what is this thing that we have between our ears? Why does it talk to us in certain ways? Right?
It's to, I think with meditation, it kind of pushes that ego aside, though, and allows you to connect with your higher self. And I think that's, kind of where we start at. We start at being connected to our higher self. We are connected to kind of an innocence and a curiosity. And then something happens and you're told that's bad. And then that gets stored away. Or, you shouldn't do this. That gets stored away. And then they all collect together, and then all of a sudden you have these construct beliefs. I don't know.
My brain still works the same way. It shows me an image, an idea with an emotion, right? And so my brain automatically starts taking me down some sort of path, right? And then at some point I'll have to remember, oh, this is not reality, right?
It's your reality.
But I can then...
That's another, we all have our own reality.
But then I can ask, is it useful or not useful, right? Okay, well, if it's useful, what is this idea that suddenly popped into my brain? and like, okay, follow it down. If it's not useful, like, no, that's probably not going to happen. Okay, keep moving on. But like, did my mom ever talk to me about how thinking works? No. Or how my brain works? No. Did we ever study that in school? No. Like, it's just something that you get saddled with, and then everyone expects you to quietly on your own figure out.
Right. But it's interesting
weird is
how
that?
it's
How
like
weird
more
is
of a discussion now than it has ever been.
I'm fine. I ask myself, is it, or is it just me that's in that discussion more?
I don't know. I feel maybe
Which it doesn't matter right now.
I don't think it has been as much of a discussion. I think when people started kind of going there, they were looked at as weird. They were looked at as like, oh, they're, kind of getting into that woo-woo world, and especially with
They're all lovey and
yeah. Like then you're labeled a hippie, and then there's labels that we've attached to that over time too,
Sure.
where when you start going down that road, it's like, no, it's logical thinking and it's black and white, and you get pushed right back into that 3D reality. But I feel like now, even with the children that are coming in, and a lot of the parents, there is more of an openness to it than ever, which is I think a good sign.
The way I want to see the world be is that we actually use our brains more, and that we become a creative society. I mean, for a long-term society, we've been robots pretty much to whoever has power, money, control. We are robots that move bricks into pyramids. We are robots that build roads. We are robots that go to our jobs every day. And it's not really creative, right? It's not what we can do. Now, I think I've said it before. I think America is filled with creatives, but we don't get to use that in a beneficial way. Like literally make a job out of it, We've got artists that can express an image, an idea. And of course, what would the world be without art and music? But there's a lot more creativity out there than just people that work in arts, in music.
Science is a creative outlet as well. I think science is also kind of goes into that category. Like all the greatest scientific minds, quantum physics, all that's creativity. Because I think creativity is something that doesn't come from our brain. I don't think it's something that comes from what we've got stored away already. I think it comes from something else, in my belief, which is tapping into something higher. And that's why when you watch movies, and that's why when you read books, it brings you into such a beautiful place, is because it's coming from something bigger.
I've been recently, thinking and just creating the idea that everything I do is creative.
Oh.
Why not?
Okay.
My cooking,
Yeah.
it's creative. The way I dress is creative. The way that I pick my daughter up and hug her and squeeze her is creative. Why? Even that, why is creative have to be something so extraordinary? Creativity is who you are, is who we are as individuals.
Because creativity comes from ourselves, and it doesn't come from being in this box where you're kind of controlled by one entity. And I think that's where like jobs come in. There's creative people in there, but they're all kind of serving this one force. Does that make sense?
There was a quote like that. The actress who played Bellatrix Lestrange in the Harry Potter, she made a quote like that everything she did was like creative art, even the way she walked, talked, anything like that.
And again, it's just mindset, right? It's kind of me playing with myself in my mind that came up against a feeling that I'm not creative. Like, I'm not really creative, and putting it on pictures that, putting my idea of creativity is that it's only in, art that is sculpted or painted, or creativity in music, and I thought, I'm just not really creative.
Right.
And then I decided to change that feeling. Like, heck yeah, I'm creative.
Because every child is creative.
Did you make a little game out of it?
We start as creative.
I make a game out of anything, though. I really do.
Does it have rules, or is it a game without rules?
Well, they're my rules, but I'm playing my own game.
Right.
Yeah.
And you break the rules
When they
a lot.
interact with other people, that's where then, okay, maybe we need to define the rules.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are you painting my face? I just met you. I'm being creative.
Yes, absolutely.
This is how I express myself.
It is.
Ma'am, get back in the car.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I think one of the biggest things that my mom did for me was nurture my creative side, because I naturally was gravitated towards art. So she put me in painting and pottery and all these different, art classes as a child. And then I kept that. I didn't stick with piano or any of the music stuff because it didn't end up being what I really gravitated towards. But
stuck with the pot.
But then, then I wonder, like, because I think every kid they start as creative. Like, yeah, exactly.
The pottery.
Yeah, I get it. I get it, Brian. But then you have parents who are like, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be a doctor, or you should do this. Or kids get in their head, I want to do this. And then they kind of leave that stuff to the side, and then they pursue this goal. And then like you said, like they decide because I don't do these type of things, I'm not creative. And I think there's a creativity that it's almost like you have to tap into your inner child, your innocence.
Absolutely. I mean, if you are feeling lost or not creative, a great way to remember that you're creative, like think about, what did I do when I was a kid that was so fun, or that, I could do it for 5 minutes and it felt like hours, or I could do it for hours, and
we used to play chips on our bicycles. Remember the
TV show?
Yeah,
Chips?
yeah. And it was like the best time. Like my yellow banana seat bicycle.
Did you pull people over?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But like just that imagination of like creating role playing, like every kid does that. Every child does that.
Yeah.
And then we get to this area where we're creating roles for ourselves, but they're not necessarily coming from this creatively inspired place. They're coming from, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Or societal, or what you learned from your family.
Yep.
So I think part of the awakening process is questioning those.
Oh, yeah.
What is that role? Or how do I feel? And how did it get to that way? Or
I drank mine away. I was a real kind of, playful kid. And then just drinking became like really, really important. So it's like, let's have fun by doing that. And then getting through like years of that, and then like having to go through recovery, it's like, okay, now you need to be a different person. And then like you have a disconnect on who you were when you were younger, what you're now supposed to be that you should have been a long time ago. And then, but you still have all this like other stuff you got to deal with, and who you have to be and who you can't be, but who you want to be and how you want to change. But, it's like tough to contain all those roles at once.
Right.
Who are the voices saying that you should be, or you could be, or you ought to be?
Usually mine,
Are you sure?
I feel like sometimes though too, like even when you get out of like, kind of a place like that where you've hit such a bottom and you have like these stigmas against you from your family and stuff, then you've put this, I think for me, I put this pressure on myself. I need to be this way and that way, or I'm a bad person. And I'm not doing what I should be doing, which is living an example of being a better person, because I don't have any excuse now. But that's almost like I look at people around me and I'm like, everybody kind of has that. We all beat ourselves up about stuff that we think we should be doing. And, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, it's all an illusion. So I'm reading this book right now. It's a biography on Jerry Wills, and he's got a really fascinating story. He doesn't remember a lot of his childhood. He believes he was dropped off here from another planet. He was raised by people in the military. But he had a near-death experience. He's a healer, and he had this near-death experience, and he said when he went through it, he was able to kind of feel, he was put in another person's place when he was like an interaction like he would have with a friend. He would be put in his friend's place to feel the emotion of how he hurt that person, but then also like in his child's place of how he felt when he felt that love, and he's like, I was able to view it from their side, and it made me really realize my impact I had on people through like just things that I did that were hurtful. And it's like, I think a lot of it boils down to what is your intention. And then if your intention always comes from a place of love or from a place of caring, how the other person responds to it is really their own stuff. And that's something that I've had to learn, especially with family.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled a lot with people in my life where you're almost so close, and then they take things that you say that are now from a place of love, but they look at it as this place where in the past it's been from a place of hurt. And yeah, it just gets, I don't know. I'm off on a tangent, but.
Well, I think that the beautiful part of it all, of what you're saying, goes back to how we feel.
Yeah.
And if we're know ourselves, and then we know where we are in certain actions, in that example with family or words, when we're coming from our hearts and the intention is from that place, then that's it. We don't control how other people feel.
Yeah.
We do not.
And then if we slip, which all of us do, you can remedy it, or you can try to do something, to heal that and just go forward instead of ruminating on it and being like, okay, now I'm a horrible person, because we all do it. Like I've hurt so many people in my lives over the years, and karma has always brought it back around to me. And so I've had to feel it in that way too. And sometimes I'm like, okay, thank you, karma. Now I learned my lesson. Now I know why that hurt. And now I know how that felt. And I never want to repeat that again. So that's an interesting lesson that life will teach you.
And life, right, like we said before, it's never ending.
It's never ending.
And there always will be more lessons.
Yeah.
Always. So I find that's a good way to look at things too, that can get us frustrated or whatnot. Be like, what is the lesson in this?
Right.
What is it that I can learn from it? What's the opportunity here? Because there's always the diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
You just got to keep shifting perspectives.
And if you don't learn the lesson, you just keep getting to go through it again and again until you learn the lesson. Yeah. And then at that point, you're like, fine, I get it. And I've definitely been there where I'm like, oh, really? It wasn't going to turn out different this time, even though I've done the same damn thing and gotten the same results every single time. And it's frustrating, but, that is the beauty of life, is we all get to grow, and I think it's super important to build connection with other people, because that's how we grow, and learning from other people. And that's why I love doing something like this, where it's having conversations about things like, that really are meaningful.
I like when I do create a game every now and then.
Yeah.
And I get to invite somebody else into that game and play,
I'm not joining that Wizards Unite or whatever it is.
I meant more like a playful way of being.
I know. Brian knows I make fun of him about Wizards Unite, so he sent me a Facebook invite, and I'm like, it's not happening.
You're just not as dedicated a Harry Potter fan as I am.
I love that you play it. Like, why not? It's good to get into the fantasy. There's nothing wrong with that.
And everything's I feel like this, when we did end up speaking after we met, on behalf of my eavesdropping, and then just being like, I love what you guys are talking about. And you mentioned this, this podcast, and as a platform to speak and to share. I'm like, this is a fun game. Whoa, we get to go and talk about things and be open and, be mindful and, just essentially, I don't know, even just driving here, I'm like, this is great. Awesome. I have no idea what we'll exactly talk about, but I know it's just gathering and sharing ideas. And
is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't hit on?
No, this is great.
Cool. All right,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining our game. We actually have to start wrapping this up. So
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Definitely glad that you came.
Fun.
Thank you for inviting me to your game.
Appreciate it.
The Outer Fringe was recorded at Triii-Point Studios. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved. Statements and opinions made on the show do not necessarily reflect the views or beliefs of Triii-Point Studios or its members.